Thank you for joining us, and you're welcome again. Now, we all know that the 2015 elections are around the corner. A lot of political parties have started maybe innuendos of campaigns, and the Nigerian people are very expectant and looking out for signs and perhaps information on what next from each candidate who might want to declare, who have already declared in some way. I have the privilege of being here with a special advisor to the president on inter-party politics, and it's no other than Senator Ben Obi, and he's also the High Chief of the Awka Kingdom. It's a pleasure meeting you, sir. A privilege.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yes, and we also want to acknowledge him. He is also the Commander of the Order of the Niger, and he is very much special assistant to the president on inter-political parties affair. Now, Senator, we had the pleasure of also having you on the sister program Kakaki earlier on sometime in the year, and we looked at political party antics, what goes on between each political party and the political officers themselves, and the behaviors expected. How do you see that meeting so far that happened till now? How have you evaluated the circumstances and the outcomes?
Well, we had a very good summit, all political parties. That was declared open by Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief, Dr. Bello Jonathan, DCFR. And the turnout was quite impressive. The commitment by the political parties was quite encouraging. You recall that we signed the communication after the summit, and in fact, I'm having a meeting tomorrow on how to proceed on to the second leg of that exercise, where we probably will be having a small committee across party lines, to put ourselves in a state of readiness as we approach the 2015 elections, so that the political parties can keep to the code of conduct of guiding our utterances and overheating the polity, which is one of the issues that we addressed at the summit, and it is in our interest, as leaders of political parties, to do just that, so as to ensure that we work hand in gloves with INEC in preparation for the 2015 elections. So after the meeting tomorrow, we'll be able to address these issues and see how we can move on.
All right, now the Osun State elections have just gone past, and we've also seen Ekiti, and they have gone very, very well. I remember back, Albany show, worthy of notice, the Anti-Terrorism Agency Bill, of course, which you helped bring, which is already signed into law by the presidency, and a lot of people seemingly say that is one of the landmarks when it comes to fighting terrorism in Nigeria, with regards to that bill. Now, a lot of politicians, especially other political parties, perhaps the APC, for instance, have mentioned quite a few times about being intimidated by the presence of heavy military during elections. Now, we cannot take away the fact that having security at election is very important. But where is the line? Where does the line get drawn, especially with political party, opposition, and then the electorate? Because people seem not to understand a lot of what that stands for in elections.
Well, you see, because of our experience and what we have gone through in the past, if you recall the First Republic, the situation in the Western region was quite volatile, and led to so many things, including, of course, the military takeover onto the civil war. So any responsible government will definitely make sure that there is enough security to protect lives and properties in anywhere election is going to be conducted. And I have yet to hear of anybody, even including the opposition leaders, who will say directly that the soldiers, physically harassed them or terrorized them or intimidated them. The fact is that they saw soldiers, and the duty of the commander-in-chief is to make sure that people go out freely to cast their votes and to be sure that they are safe in a place that the tension has become so high. I went to Osun State to organize my usual sensitization workshop for the political parties. And soon after the workshop, the political editors, came to my hotel and said they wanted to interview me. And they said, look, the tension here is so high. You can feel it. And what do you have to say? I mean, you had a successful sensitization workshop, all of them attended and everything, but the tension is so high. What do you think will happen? I said to them, by the time we get to the election, that tension will drop. Incidentally, most of them reported it on the day of the election. It was just as if it was that until Mark said, go, they reported this thing will drop. And it dropped. Because one is used to things like this. One has been involved in this thing for some 35, 36 years now. So you want to imagine what will happen. Prior to an election, candidates will be, saying all sorts of things. But once the election gets to the peak, when it's going to hold, it will be to your tent, O Israel, because candidates are saying this because they are talking to multitudes of people, sea of heads. But when it's now, everybody has been restricted back, campaigns are over, sanity now prevails. And this is what you saw in Osun State. And one must give kudos, and I keep saying this. For me, one of the major achievements of this administration is the commitment of Mr. President to free, fair, and transparent election that he has championed since 2011. I have been a victim of electoral manipulation, and I know what I went through. I know what my family went through for 2 years in search of trying to recover my stolen mandate. So to come and see a president who is committed even to his own election, to say, look, don't rig elections for me. Don't spill blood for my sake or for my ambition. And you can see how that has encouraged the body conducting elections, that is INEC. You can see the steady and progressive improvement of INEC, election after election. And this is because the president has committed himself to sanitizing the electoral process, which was not the case in the past. So you see, it's wonderful to see that we're having people. I mean, look at what happened in Ekiti. It's just that now we're talking politics. I mean, it's the usual thing. But the governor, soon after the elections, of course,
conceded.
Conceded. I mean, that the party is now saying they're going to cut this. Okay, I mean, political parties are free to do things like that. But at least we all saw what happened. Look at what happened in Osun. The president didn't say because his party lost. He merely congratulated the winner. The same thing he did from Edo to Ondo to Anambra to Ekiti to Osun. Well, I am a member of the ruling party, yes, but my party lost, so for God's sake, I congratulate the winner. This is the way that we grew up to know and see politics develop. That it's a sporting event, there must be a winner, there must be a loser. So that is what we have achieved as of today, which is, quite commendable.
Indeed, and going back to the days of Action Congress of Nigeria, under which platform you ran for vice president in 2007, I'm sure it's very nostalgic for you. Let's look at political participation by women. A lot of young women seem to think that there are lacking mentors in that area, especially at national level, and coming out to boldly say, I would want to run for governor, I would want to run for president. We have not yet understood that culture of women standing boldly to be participate in elections in Nigeria. Is there a reason for that, or could that be just, insidious grapevine?
No, I think it's a question of time. They have started. I mean, Sarah Jibril did that in 2011, and then for some reasons and circumstances, don't forget, we finally found the first woman governor from Anambra State, Virgie Etiaba. When Peter Obi was impeached, I mean, she became governor. She's the first woman to be governor.
Yes.
And we've had series. I mean, in 1995, 96, 97, Joy Amadi was running for governorship of Anambra State. And if that election had held, she would have won. She would have been governor. From the statistics on the ground. Again, we've had Honorable Uche Hunife. She's run 3 times. We've had women running. I mean, Chris Ayan is now doing the same thing in Imo. Was that in Kwara? The same thing. We had the Sarakis. We had one of the princesses from there also still even wanting to run. So I see it as a steady growth, and very soon the numbers will increase, as is bound to in the next election. So I don't think it's just the culture. The culture was such that intimidated the women folk. But as it stands today, thanks to President Goodluck Jonathan, he has loosened all of that. Yes. I mean, you have very good number of women now in government. And to tell you the truth, they are doing very well. They are all excelling in their various fields. So I don't see why anybody would want to, say a woman cannot do this. They've done so very well. I mean, not for me not to start mentioning names, but goodness me.
It's them.
A good number of them.
A good number of them.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's look at the essence of electoral debates, during elections. I'm sure you remember this because you were also part of the debating team while you were back in school, back in your early years. Electoral debates we've seen across the world have brought some sort of transparency, accountability, and owning your own fellowship. How do you think this works in Nigeria? Because we've seen a few electoral debates. We've seen one in Ondo. We've seen a few presidential. We didn't see that in Ekiti and Osun. But how can this be a tool for transparency? And should it be also encouraged in Nigeria?
Oh, no, I mean, I am all for it. I am all in support of electoral debates. I mean, a lot of busy people may not even have the opportunity of listening to rallies and candidates campaigning at rallies and making their promises and all of that. But, I mean, if you're told about a debate that is coming up, I mean, there's always the promo of these debates, and then people are glued to their television sets to listen and watch. I mean, there you'll be able to know, which candidate is of external stuff. These things happen. I mean, in the U.S., it's the regular future. And I must say that even in the recent past, but for Ekiti and Osun, it never happened. Taiwo Ali, my good friend and chairman of DAR, High Chief Raymond Dakwesi, They've done so much in that regard in trying to make sure that the debate, goes a long way. I mean, the last one was in Anambra, and it was able to enable the Anambra people zero down on the key candidates. And everybody said, well, okay, now we know where we're going.
Indeed.
And from the pack of 22, they knew exactly who remained relevant. So you cannot do away with such a situation that will help the people determine which one of the candidates they would like to vote for, because that debate will have brought out, the quality in each candidate. The knowledge and understanding of the local nuances will also have featured in such a debate. It counts.
Indeed, we understand, and I don't know if you've also followed. There was a summit of electoral debate groups. I think a few days past. The United States, the debate center was here as well. Jamaica was here. Malawi was here as well, and NEG was there, which is the Nigerian Electoral Debate Group, which you mentioned, Chief Taiwo Alimi. And the question whether it should be mandatory or voluntary also came up. We have seen a lot of countries in Africa, grapple with power and control and ascension, and people thinking that rather than relinquishing power, it is more based on anointed, which is sort of the controversy there. So if you're looking at the electoral debate, you also have the side where people are seemingly thinking it should be voluntary. Would you recommend it to be mandatory or voluntary across Africa?
Well, quite honestly, for now, it should be mandatory. I mean, it should be. If I were to have been in the Senate up till this time, I would have moved. I would have brought a bill, trying to get INEC to have it in the Electoral Act, by way of saying that there must be debates, across line from a particular office level, all national offices.
Okay.
So that the people will be able to know, who their representatives will be, and the capability and the competence of each and every one of them. That will go a long way. After we must have stabilized on that, then you can say, well, let it be voluntary. But the way I see it now, it's important, very, very important, that we go into debates before we go into electing our candidates. It's important.
Indeed, and that brings me to 2015. Would you think that ideally this is what we should also expect for the presidential candidates for come 2015, that there could be an electoral debate that would help to also bring that to
Well, it was done in 2011. It was done in 2011, so I don't see why we cannot do it again for 2015. I mean, I would definitely encourage it, and I'm sure that President Jonathan will be very happy to, have a debate on these things, and that's why. Of course, that's why you see that regularly he has this media chat.
Yes, indeed.
So it would be a good thing to have it, and then that will enable us to meet our candidates, and discuss Nigeria, in all its ramifications.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a privilege talking to you. Very much privilege. Well, they say that elections are the institutions, or rather the technology for democracy. And when you talk about debate, it brings a voice of that expression and the yearning of the people, especially when you look at transparency and accountability. I've been talking to Senator Ben Obi, the High Chief of the Yorka Kingdom, and I also think that a lot of people out there might want to also reiterate the values of electoral debate. Come 2015, let us see the mandate, let us hear what they have for the people, and then the people's choice would count. Thank you so much for coming. It's good to have you.
Thank you.